All right, so let's move to Netflix for a while now. Let's talk about All Quiet on the Western Front. Ricardo, if you don't mind, I want you to do the synopsis for this, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So preamble, right? I never read the novel for this film, right? But I did see the 1930 film, right?
Okay.
This was actually one of the first films that I saw when I first got cable, when I was introduced to TCM, and TCM just introduced me to so much great classic movies. Yeah, this was one of the first films that I saw there, right? And even though it's been ages since I saw that film, I just remember really really loving that film though. Because yeah, I mean compared to other war films I saw, this was specifically an anti-war film, right? It was
Right.
just really showing the horrors of war, and it was amazing that they did this in 1930, right? The pre-code era, right? If it's one shot that I do remember out of this film, is that final shot though, and it's just this.
Yeah.
It's just basically a hand, and right next to him, right next to that hand is a rifle, and there's a butterfly. So the soldier is reaching out to the butterfly now, and he collects a shot. You just hear this gunshot, blow, and then the hand
Hmm.
goes down, and the butterfly flies away. And that is just how they end that movie. That scene in particular, like, just really stuck out to me, but that was just so amazing, right? But yeah, this was just such a powerful film though. It's just a shame that I never rewatched it, right? But yeah, that final shot always stood out to me, right? So I was surprised when Netflix dropped the first trailer for this, right? And
Right.
see,
Hmm.
well, it's like, all right, okay, right. Netflix can start the Oscar race early. Okay, okay. But what makes this show pretty interesting now is that it is not just the second remake of it. Well, sorry, I should say the third film version
Incarnation.
of it, right?
Yeah.
Incarnation of it, right? Because
Hmm.
there was actually a TV version that came out, I believe, it was 1979, right?
Right.
But yeah, this film is actually German, right? Because the original
Yeah.
film is American, primarily American, right? Even though it is set in World War I, it involves Germany against France, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, in this case here, this version is actually German made, right?
Right.
Um, and that makes it pretty interesting too. And I believe, well, the director himself, what's his name by Edward Berger, yeah, pretty specifically wanted to make this film from a more German perspective. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I really want to show you what these guys went through back then, and that really makes it interesting, right? And last, before we get to your well, if you have anything to say on the original film, yeah, this film is was submitted actually for the Academy Award for next year's Academy Award, sorry, for Best International Feature Film, right?
Right.
And yeah, I mean, this it makes perfect sense, and not just because it's from Germany, but because the story of this film is just so timeless. You know what I mean? It's just such a powerful story, right? Even though, to be fair, when I get to my totally film, it is familiar. We've seen this, these stories told time and time again. A
Right.
perfect example is 1917, right? Where
Right.
yeah, this show borrows, I would say, or is inspired by, or vice
Well,
versa,
well, we
from
could
that
we
film.
could talk about that because it's one of those feedback loop things.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. There's a feedback loop kind of thing. You could see stuff like, yeah, 917 did this better, but
Right.
well, it is from based off of from 1930. So maybe Sam Mendes watched that film and did
Right.
that copy it or
Yeah.
replicate it
That's it.
somehow.
It's bunks back. It's bunks
It's
back
that.
with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that is a easy criticism, when it comes to
Right.
films of this nature, and especially where it's set and all that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, Ricardo, take it away. Have you seen the 1930 film?
I've seen actually both old versions actually, but a long time ago. Like I watch it, vaguely remember it, and then the more recent one I watch and I vaguely remember it. But it's one of those war films that I know is a big one, but it don't stick with me. Like other war films, like I prefer stuff like Come and See or uh, Son of Saul or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
This I like it, but it didn't stick with me. It don't stick
Oh.
with me as much as the others, and then 1917 kind of came, and is the to me is the workable template of way you do with modern war films. Though. So I don't know, but yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about this new one.
Right. But yeah, yeah. Take it away. What is this version of All Quiet on the Western Front about?
Right. So yeah, this one. Well, it's the book, but it largely follows the book as I understand it. It follows on Paul Baumer. I want to say, I pronounce him in German well. Uh, he works for he's well back then it was called the Imperial German Army. Start of the what they called the Great War back then, but we know it now as World War One. And basically, it's just him, with his friends in school growing up, and then coming to the Western, well, effectively what is known as the Western Front again at the time. And yeah, slowly but surely, him becoming very disheveled and quite cynical about the nature of war and friendship and, stealing of gooses to cook and,
Yeah, boy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
And just,
I actually forgot that actually happened in the original film though. Like I
right,
forgot
right.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just some real, just dark, brutal shit too at times. Like that scene where they see a bunch of bodies in a room in the room, like
Yeah, boy. And then the explanation behind that, boy, Lord.
yeah, yeah, and then just stuff like the middle of combat, but they decide to stop and eat for some reason. Like, bro, yeah, the middle of combat, you can't be that hungry. Like, come on. But yeah, it's just them going through saying that the situation melted down. The idea of glory, how the disposability of soldiers. They have a whole scene about right after the fight, they're still fighting. Now we're gonna die in glory, and then well, eventually the failure and fall of the Imperial German war machine, coming on to the end of the war, and them having to surrender and whatnot. And in the retreat, effectively, all of his friends just get picked off one by one, and it gets very, very tragic at the end. And I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, Paul himself, has a grisly fate as well. And they get into the aspects of calm expression, the idea of fate. It's a very, for lack of a better term, I never saw this movie as particularly hopeful. That could be my interpretation, but it always felt as incredibly fatalistic. It depends on what part of the war it is. What this film does very interestingly, it gets into the negotiations aspect of it. The old joke, old men dying, young men. Sorry, old men talking, young men dying. Well, we get to see the old men talking. We get to see, them negotiating the nature of the war, negotiating small things like ceasefires, things like aspects of how, things when things calm down, how nice it is be. But then when things get rough, it is get rough. That little small things, like I forget which part it was where the fella fired, I forget what he fired, I think it was a dead body. Oh, no, a guy was dying, I think. One of his friends or somebody was dying, he's still alive. And I think he fired him as a mercy killing, but because the enemy saw the muzzle flash, he got fired upon. And he got his helmet hit off. And he's like,
Yes, I remember that.
right. And that was a foreshadow to something very unfortunate later. Go again, when they stick your head up in the trench, you're done. I thought this was pretty good, but it was more set stuff. Like, it didn't do anything. I mean, I didn't expect them to do anything different. I was just expected to see, a bunch of solid German character actors. We get to see Daniel Brühl and a bunch of others. So it's like, oh yeah, I know he face and I know this man face and so on and so forth. And then they just focus on the character stuff, the light stuff, the part of the little boy, which is surprisingly darker shot than the original versions. I didn't think it would get that dark. But they make it. It is. I can't criticize anything about it in this sense because it's like, yeah, that is a movie. It's supposed to be long. It's supposed to be pondering and slow, and it's the war. That's the nature of war. It's supposed to be just grind, massive boredom for a long time. You had to deal with bullshit like trench foot and water and all kind of nonsense, and then incredible violence for a short period of time. That's it. And it is get real grimy. It had this the only thing in the movie that I didn't think that would disturb me as much as it did is have a scene with a shovel. Oh my gosh. That scene with the shovel, brutal as hell. That was brutal. And then it had the scene with the tanks. I didn't think the tank scene would be as brutal as it was. That was pretty badass. It's badass, but it's still grimy as hell. They make the grime work. It is grimy. But I think what happens because 1917 kind of scratched that itch of that type of violence and the nature of that type of warfare. I wasn't as hyped for it in the same way. Like if 1917 didn't exist, I'd probably real hype this up more and be hyped for this more. But 1917 already, for lack of a better term, scratched that itch, as they say. And that is about it. Like, it came, it went, it told the same story that we saw before, and it didn't really add anything other than the negotiations part, but all of that was in the book too. I was like, all right, I think I just enjoyed those scenes a lot more because of how it contextualizes the war, especially from the German perspective. And they make it work for what it was. It's pretty good, but it didn't stick with me. That's all I'll say. It doesn't stick with me any way I thought it could have or should have. Maybe, I don't know. But I think it's the big factor is because of 1917 did what it did. I was like, all right, already in that headspace, and that movie already gave me that headspace. This doesn't really change all that much in that sense. But still pretty good. Like, I can't be mad. They clearly got in for the Oscar. It is very well made. It is very well made. I can't take away anything from that.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that's all.
it
That's
is.
how I
It
feel
is.
about it.
Like for real. Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. When it comes to get grimy, it got grimy. Again, that scene with the shovel is brutal as hell. Holy crap! But that's about it. And the scene with the tanks, and that was pretty good. But I couldn't. I wasn't latching onto it in the same way I felt. I felt it could have. I don't know. That's just me. So I don't know. That's how you feel about it. Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part, man. It's not that we were spoiled by 1917. Well, I think for me the reason why that movie stood out so much is, well, the simulated long take, right?
Right. Right.
And this kind of brings up the issue that well, unfortunately befalls the war genre, right?
Right.
Perfect example is the Vietnam War, the films that we got like in the 80s, right? Where there was just so much, not a lot, of course, but there's so much films that zeroed in on that war now that you had to really go above and beyond the Call of Duty to do something different, right? So
Right.
that's where you got rare exceptions like, say, Full Metal Jacket or Platoon, right? Which actually like try to do something a little different, right? Well, especially Full Metal Jacket, right, with the non-linear narrative, right? So that works here, right? Well, not non-linear, but in terms of, well, setting practically like the first third of the movie at a military in training camp, basically, right? Just
Right.
deciding to set the show up there, right? And perfectly, just like little detail here. I just love, like, in terms of that movie though, how like in the marketed for the trailer, which still is one of my favorite trailers, right? Where they don't even tell you about all that stuff that took place at the army camp. They don't tell you anything about that in it. They show you a whole bunch of war shit and existentialism stuff, right? But yeah, so I imagine when people went in to see this thing and you seen this drill sergeant, sir, yes, sir, bullshit is still can't hear you. Like, what? And yet that's like one of the most memorable moments of that whole movie, and that kind of set it apart from all the other Vietnam War movies we got in the 80s, right? I would say
Right.
period, right? It's so funny I bring it up Arlie Ermy, rest in peace, right? Yeah, you had a character, a drill sergeant doing a little
Right.
bit of that same thing in this movie here too. I was like, oh, okay, I see what you did there. Right,
Yeah.
right. But yeah, that is unfortunately the issue when it comes to films of this nature, right? Well, when it comes to war films, you had to kind of do something a bit different, right? Or else they just kind of feel like, oh, it's the same old same, right?
Yeah.
Even though, to the show's credit, it is a remake of
The
a classic
original.
film,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it is from it is German made, right? So you're getting a German perspective as opposed to
Yeah.
an American take on
Well,
a
for me,
German novel. It's
yeah,
like that.
for me it felt like, again, it's a victim of its own legacy. Like, it's the original, but because other people come in and derive from it, but add on to it, and then now it doesn't really bring anything new to the table. That's happened all the time. Um, that's how I felt about this. Like, it don't do anything new or interesting. It's just well done, but it's not. None of it is interesting or special in any way. Again, because we see all this imagery in other places done before. Not, I wouldn't
Yes.
necessarily say done better, but just done before, right? But that's about it. It just so it's not bad, Like, it's just, it need to do something interesting. That's all I always thought about it, and it didn't do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like,
agreed. Yeah, and
right,
that's why you have to commend 1917, whether you love it or not,
right,
for that long take, because
hmm,
like it was just done so perfect. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and it just added a whole new context to the story, because here we're following a character or like a group of characters, and you just literally seeing how hellish this life is, like literally following this person step by step, and that's what that show did very well, right? So while they do that same thing with the lead now, Paul Baumer, if that's his name, if that's how you pronounce it, yeah, I mean it works, but again, it's following the same structure as the original film, right? Now, in no way with these criticisms are we saying that the show is bad. No, this show is really, really good though. I would say right off the bat, direction, the direction by Edward Berger, boy, my God, this and cinematography. I have to give credit as well too. This shit looks amazing though. I would say, outside of the best international feature film, I think this should be definitely nominated for best cinematography, boy. Because yeah,
right,
this rivals what my boy Roger Deakins did in 1917, right?
yes,
Though I
right.
saw a little bit
It's
Roger
very similar
Deakins
shots.
worship here or there, like he's
Yeah,
playing with the flares, but
with fire.
this
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
just a little bit different with so instead of like orange flare, they have like a red, like a really sharp red flare. Like, okay, I see what you're doing here. But nah, but despite the Roger Deakins worship here or there, whether it's intentional or not, but yeah, there's some like breathtaking shots in this though, and it totally works though, because yeah, I mean, while you give him something grim and dark and violent, yeah, there's some really like gorgeous scenes here or there, right? And yeah, it totally works, right? The acting I think is pretty solid for the most part, right? I was surprised to see Daniel Brew, but like I was just looking at the man face like, hey, look Zemo, hey, you know what I mean? I just like that he is one of those individuals, as I said before, who is part of the whole negotiation aspect, right? And that to me is what really makes this film stick out, right? And I like that they give it enough of it. So no, it's not part war, part negotiation, but they give it enough of it to make you understand what's going on, right? And where it all leads up to, boy, caught me completely by surprise. Okay, the
Yeah.
ticket, all right, well, it's gonna be all peaceful, but
No.
and I love this aspect about the movie where it's like, nah, fuck peace shit. It's about pride, shit. You want to go
Yeah.
home as cowards, boy? And yeah, well, I'm not gonna see what happens there, boy, but it feels totally justifiable from their perspective, but at the same time,
Nah,
just
yeah, it's
like
nonsense.
why would you do that? Like that,
Yeah.
why? But I get the mindset though. You really get the mindset, and
Yeah,
again,
this is
that's like
basically it's basically like an honor culture, effectively. I mean, that's what it is.
exactly. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the sad part about it, not even ironic, that's the sad part, is not even a guy who in the war, it's not, it's just some
Yeah,
man
like
just
normal
sitting
thing.
up, eating the caviar, literally eating caviar, dread, while his people, his soldiers getting slaughtered by the minute. That's the irony of it all, Trent. And,
Yeah.
and it's moments like those that really make the anti-war message of this movie really stand out. Okay, yeah, true and true. It's that. It really shows you the ugliness of war, boy. And but really what the show does very well too, because I mean, we've seen numerous war films that show you the ugliness of war, right? But it also kind of shows the irony of it too, where the character of Paul, who just want to do right, he wants to serve his country and all that kind of too. Yeah, he and all could get he and all ends up being jaded by it too, right? And that's why I love the comparison between him and his friend Kat, right? Well, that's his nickname, right? Especially what happens to him near the end of the film and how that bleeds into Paul's character. That totally worked for me, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
just the irony of it all, right? There's actually a powerful moment involving Paul, yeah, like beating down a guy to death, right? And then like realizing the guy is bleeding to death, right? And then almost and just kind of looking at him for the first time and as not an enemy that you just shoot because your superiors tell you to do that. But no, it's a real person, and look, let me try to help this person, even though I practically shot him and practically like beat him to death. Or sorry, he was choking him. He was trying to choke him to death.
Yeah.
It's like that, right? Just kind of seeing that, hey, this is a person who's just like me, Dread, like, but seeing it last minute, right? And that actually leads to a really, 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 really powerful final sequence too. Just kind of showing, yeah, just how ultimately it. Well, I should say, the sequence, I should say, final sequence though, involving Paul though. Yeah, just kind of showing that, yeah, ironically, in the end of the day, he is just a soldier in this big war, and
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean. When history looks back at this era now, are they gonna remember him? No, he's just one of many people who you know you know, who lost their lives there in this war, and it's just really, really unfortunate, right? But yeah, it's those deeper moments, those messages is really are really what makes this film stand out, right? And yes, I mean we have to touch on the battle sequences. Yes, they are great, well shot, very intense. The scene involving the tank, so yeah, boy, that was wow. That was tense AF too. That shovel scene, as you mentioned before, jeez,
Mm.
boy, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it when it gets brutal, boy, it gets really, really, really brutal though, right? But yeah, you know what I mean. The action, shouldn't say action. The battle scenes are very intense, very well edited and shot and whatnot, right? Also the music. I have to touch on the music quickly. Very well done though. It's surprisingly minimalist though. Like you would get like your little string moments here or there, right? But there's like this particular piece of music that's used during some of the when just to build tension though, and it actually works so like I thought like it was a little too stripped back because it's just drums. It's just like you're just hearing drums being hit, right?
Yeah.
But like the more they use it, like nah, this actually clicking though, and it actually works in building that tension, especially near the end boy where they play it again. It's like yeah, I felt that shit, right? But and just to close it though, I really would like this to be nominated though at next year's Academy
Right.
Awards.
Yeah,
So
I can see that
I
happening.
I I, I I think that I honestly don't think that it will win. I think some other more
Well,
intellectual or say provocative film might come and
well,
win it,
I mean, we
but
don't know. Eh?
this could win,
We don't know what. No, for international, more than likely, but like they could go for best film. Period. Like straight up, best film.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because as it just has the goods. So
Yeah.
has solid direction, great acting. Just standout moments. Throughout this too. Yeah, I could. As I said, Ricardo, I could see this going up for best picture as well too, right? I mean, it's not like it's not the first time that international film got nominated for best picture. So why not
Right.
this? I think this has a chance. Not really so much of winning but being nominated, man. And it's coming from Netflix too. So again, the Oscar race has begun. So I thank Netflix for that, right? But despite its familiarities and the fact that we've kind of seen this before and it kind of really doesn't do anything new as far as the genre goes, this is still a very well made and very effective film though, especially with its messages and whatnot, right? So rating wise, I'm gonna give this a lighter, decent 4 to 5, man. This is worth checking out. It's on Netflix. I believe that it was shown theatrically in some areas.
Right.
Um, I wouldn't mind watching this theatrically because I actually saw 1917 theatrically and it was yeah, I love the film just because of that experience, right? Um, and I probably would have enjoyed this film a lot more if I didn't watch it on my laptop, right? I don't know. It's one
Okay.
of those shows, right? Yeah, even though I had my soundbar, so I get the nice bass with the explosions and shit, but still, I don't know. I would have preferred it on a big screen, right? But still, for what the show is and just just a more Eurocentric perspective on this war now and on this story, yeah, this film totally works, man. I do hope that this title does pop up during Oscar season, and I think more people should check it out. Okay, yeah, this has Oscar potential in for sure, man. And even if it doesn't do anything new as far as the war genre goes, especially with World War One, yeah, this does not change the fact that this still is a very powerful and very engaging film. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Ricardo, last thoughts on Rita.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you say. It doesn't, as I say, my only problem is that it don't do anything all that special, but good enough for you to enjoy the thing. And because it just everything across the board is well acted. Like nothing is complained about in terms of like who the acting is or the scenes or the shots. I did listen to it in English dub though, so I suppose, um,
Oh, you
I
did?
suppose.
Okay, I took it in German. I
Okay,
wanted to hear
yeah,
it authentically.
right, no problem. Yeah, I
But
listened.
how's the English dub? It was good, right?
It's fine. I mean, it's noticeable, but fine, in my opinion at least. I thought it was okay. But I generally do complain about stuff like that. Once I get the semblance of it, it's like cool. Yeah, I suppose I could probably make the effort and see it in the German, but like nah, it's like it tell its story and it do what it had to do. As I said, good, pretty good. Like I can't nothing to complain about in any major way, but at the same time, it's like yeah, you ain't bringing anything new to the table because I really felt they could have done something interesting with it. It's just pretty standard fare, but just well executed across the board, and that's all I could ask for. To be fair, especially for such a classic story. But yeah, rating. I'll give it quite a high rating, all things considered. Even though it did stick with me the way it does, I'll imagine for a lot of people they will love it, and it does tie into to the aesthetics of World War One much better than say 1917 does. Like 1917, even though 1917 is a true story, it's a story the way it was told. It could have been any war, to be honest. This was very specific to World War One, the nature of it and the sheer shock, of that war to the world. That he already got that semblance with this film a lot better than. That's probably one situation I'll probably give it over 1917. Rating, I'll still give it a very high score, 9 out of 10. It's very good. But I couldn't. It didn't stick with me personally. That's all I'll feel about it. So moving on from that.
All right, kind of funny that they give it such a high score, even though it did stick with you, though. But all right.
Oh yeah, yeah. It is. It's from a pure. Just looking at it from a production standpoint, just how well made it is. It's across the board. It have nothing to complain about. It's just it not subjectively just not here. But I'm not gonna let that interfere with my decision in this case, especially for something like this story because it's a remake. It's a remake twice. It's a book. Like it's the book. Like it's not you. It's
Yeah,
exactly. Right. So that's about it.
All right.